Hey guys, Christina here, and today I have a flip through and review for you of this curriculum here, The Power in Your Hands, Writing Nonfiction in High School. This is by Sharon Watson. My son in grade 12 recently completed her course, and I wanted to share his thoughts and my thoughts with you. If you're not familiar with Sharon Watson, she has a number of writing and some literature programs for those in middle and high school, as she was a homeschooling mom herself. Most of her material, if not all of it, is Christian-based, but it's not heavily focused on Christianity, if that makes sense. She actually has a really interesting story of how she ended up creating curriculum, because she had been teaching her own children. She'd been doing co-ops, teaching other groups, when her friend, Jay Wiley, approached her about doing a curriculum. And if you're in the homeschool world, you probably know the name Jay Wiley. He was one of the original writers for Apologia, as well as he now writes for Brian Builders. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Brian Builders. And he encouraged her and I think helped make the connections for her to have her own curriculum. So the reason I chose this curriculum was because my son had previously done The Good and the Beautiful up to high school 3, which is what they offer, which was grade 11. So I was looking for a writing program specifically for grade 12, and this is what I decided with some input from my son. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around, give you a look at the different components, then I'll come back here and share both of our thoughts on it. So there are 2 books. This is the teacher book, which I'll go through in a minute. We'll start with the student one. So it starts off with the copyright information and then the table of contents. So there's different parts. So in part 1, there's chapter 1, thinking and planning, chapter 2, opinions. Then there's part 2, persuasion. So this one has chapter 3, persuasion essentials, persuasion next level, persuasion logical, persuasion compare and contrast, persuasion moral ethical. And then it moves on to 8, which is persuasion, emotional appeal. Part 3 is proofreading. So chapter 9 is proofreading. 10 is common grammar mistakes. Part 4 is exposition. I think that's how you say that, exposition. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Chapter 11 is letters and emails. 12 is process writing, how to. 13 is the position paper and documentation. Chapter 14 is devotional. Chapter 15 is newspaper writing. Chapter 16 is biographies. 17 is compare and contrast. 18 is literary analysis. 19 is the definition essay. Part 5 is description. So 20 is descriptive essays. Part 6 is narration. You have personal testimony or spiritual journey for 21. Chapter 22 is interview into narrative. 23 is personal narrative, and then part 7 is your reference. So all these different parts to help you, what they call your toolbox, be your own editor, point orders, paragraph types, paragraph essentials, the don't list. There's a whole bunch of things here, acknowledgements and index. So there's 23 chapters, and that's how it's divided up. So I'll give you a look at kind of what a chapter looks like. So it's all set up in the same way. There's that, and then lesson 1, chapter and lesson. So this book is a consumable. My son started to use it, but then he ended up not, because I thought, why don't you just not write in it and then I can use it for other kids, which is a cost saving for me. So there is some writing that you do, or you can do it in a book, which is what he ended up doing at the end. Lesson 2. And then you're on to chapter 2, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. You can see that there is some writing in here. Lesson 5. And then you're working on first drafts. And on to the next one. So I'll just give you a quick flip through. So at the back, there's that toolbox, which which is this. So how to, point order, be your own editor. And then here's the lesson. So everything the child needs to read is in this book, as well as what they need to write, their checklist for their writing. Everything is in this book. The only thing that's not in this book is what they write, of course, which they're going to hand in to be marked. So that's the student book. Now the teacher book is quite a bit smaller. I didn't show you this one, but it's pretty thick. Not sure if I had the page numbers on it there. No, I don't see page numbers, but it's quite thick. So this one is much thinner. And this one is interesting because one thing to note here, well, let's start with the copyright. It does say that individual grading grids for writing assignments may be copied for your own personal homeschool co-op or classroom use. That's important to note. So here's their table of contents. So it talks about the program, the features, the major writing assignments, and the objectives. And then it has a grading toolbox. So it goes through, how do I give a grade? How do I earn an A, a B, a C, a D, an F? And it actually has examples for you to see. Format for submitting. It has all this stuff, and then it's what's in the student's toolbox here. And then it goes to the answer key and the grading rubrics for each individual chapter. So one thing I will note here is that it gives writing assignments where there's usually 3 options. So beginning writer, intermediate writer, or an accomplished writer. So my son did the accomplished writer because he's in grade 12 and he was preparing for what would be like a college, going into college or university. And so you can choose, and sometimes they're shorter, sometimes they're just not as in depth. The assignments are a little bit different. So it kind of goes through major writing assignments. Let me skip ahead. So here it talks about grading. So here's an example of a paper and why it would be an A versus how to earn a B, how to earn a C. So it gives you actual students writing, which I found helpful to go through before doing the course. So let's just jump ahead here. So here's an example of what the grading rubrics looks like. It's just like this. So they have the separate grade for content and the separate grade for grammar and mechanics. Here's another one. So that's what those 2 books look like. Let me see if I can pull up one of those assignments real quick and show you the difference. So here's an example of the assignment. So for beginning writers, it's 350 to 500 words, whereas for intermediate and accomplished together this time, they're 450 to 600 words for this particular assignment. Overall, I really liked this program. I went through a lot of different writing programs and kind of narrowed it down and had my son give his opinion on some things. And this is the one that we just felt was the best one for him. And I think it went really well. So I have a little pro-con list here from both me and from my son. So I'm just going to keep referring back to it to make sure I don't miss anything. So it's a very independent program, which is something that I like as a mom with 5 kids who are homeschooling. And especially because my son is at that grade 12 level, I really wanted something that was primarily independent. I'm still checking in, I'm still marking, but the majority of it's done on his own. And yeah, it worked great in that way. There are tons of teacher resources, like I just showed you in that book, and I particularly like where they show you what a child's writing would look like for each grade and gives you the helps and the hints in there. It's a pretty affordable writing curriculum. So for these 2 books together, it was $95 Canadian, because I'm Canadian, or there is the PDF version you can get through her website, and it is $38 US for the student book and $18 US for the teacher book, which I think is very, very affordable. I think we will go that route in the future because yes, I think I will continue using this. I think we finally found a writing program that I like. There's no prerequisites for this course, of course, by grade 12, or it's recommended for grades 9 to 12. So by that time, kids should have some writing experience, but there's no set prerequisites, which I think is great. My son, when I asked him what he liked, he said the person writing the book definitely had a sense of humor, which I read a little bit, and yep, that's true. He got to write about things that he liked through the majority of the course, and I think that's one of the things that she's mentioned that I read about, is that she starts off allowing the children to really write what interests them, and that's what gains their interest and their confidence in their writing, and so I really appreciated that, and he did too. He said the word counts on the assignments weren't that bad. So if you watched my review on the literature studies he did this year, some of those were some really long writing assignments, and so compared to that, this he felt was quite easy and very doable. So when I asked him what he didn't like, he said towards the end of the course I wasn't able to choose the subjects completely like I had in the beginning. Like I just explained, I think that's done on purpose. He also, he said my teacher, me, didn't really understand some of the subjects I would write about. Yeah, so he wrote about a few like pop culture things that I just didn't know a lot about. And so he had to do a lot of explaining to me, and that kind of annoyed him a little bit. So that's one of the things that comes with when kids are writing about what they're interested in. It's not necessarily what I know about as their teacher. But yeah, those were the only cons that he put down. And honestly, the only one that I can think of is that in that teacher book, let me pull it up here, the rubrics are very hard, like this. They're very hard to like photocopy or to print from the book. I wish that there was either a supplement I could buy on her website of just the rubrics so I could just print them out really easily, or maybe they were all together at one section where I could like, and perforated where you could pull them out and scan them easier. It's such a small thing in the course, but it's something that took extra time and trying to figure out, and I didn't want to destroy the teacher book because I do hope to use this course with other kids, but I needed those grading rubrics. So that's just like my only complaint about this course. I did want to mention one thing here. Let me find it if I can quickly. One of the reasons that we chose this book is, I'm not gonna be able to find it real quick. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the MLA format is used here. So you're doing the MLA method for book, periodical, DVD, website, Bible, encyclopedia. You're learning how to write an MLA format and how to do your references and everything in that format, which is something it was key for me. That's one of the things I was looking for in this high school English, because I wanted my child to know going into university how MLA format worked. So I was really glad that it was in there, and that's one of the reasons we chose this course. I think I've covered everything. I'm sure I haven't, but if you have questions, please feel free to leave them down below. I always try to answer any questions that you leave there. I really make these videos for any parent who's thinking of using this curriculum, because I think sometimes when you can't just go into a store and wander around and look at everything and, you know, talk to people who have used it, I want this to be that resource for you. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. Otherwise, I hope that this finds you having a great day and that this has been helpful and useful to you. Take care.